Hello, good day. Thanks for dropping in. I'm continuing to run the diagnostics on this quite wonderful 8032. I would say, cosmetically speaking, it's probably, maybe 8.5 out of 10. There's just the odd little thing. But we'll see what a magic eraser can do. But I have here something else. Indeed. This is the very first printer my brother and I ever owned. We used it for school. We used it for things to do with the Bradley Brothers bulletin board system. It was our workhorse. It was. It is a 2022. It is. And it uses tractor paper, if you can find it. I believe I still have some around. It uses like a regular typewriter ribbon. There are stories, of course, to be told of this. For example, the first time that I went home and I did something for school on a machine, well, it would have been a 4032, probably a Fat 40, and this printer. And I did not have a word processor. So I just wrote a program of print commands. 10, print, quote, put in what I wanted to say up to the maximum length that I could do, put in quote, hit enter, put in 20, print, quote, put in what I wanted to say. Before word processors, there were other ways. Not as versatile. But anyway, so I remember I handed it in, and it was to my electricity teacher. His name was Mr. Worthington. And Mr. Worthington was not so sure about this. Because typically, everything at that time was handed in, and it was handwritten. And he was not sure if he could accept this. I urged him to accept it. He apparently, which I did not know for a while, went unto the school office to get a ruling on whether he could indeed accept this. And it was decided, yeah, you can accept this. So he did. With some reluctance, of course. A step forward, maybe about 40 years, and unless you have some reasonable accommodation that needs to be accommodated, you must hand everything in, typed, printed, etc. Now, I'm sure anything handed in today would look much better than the character set on this printer, because this printer, it had, well, it wasn't the highest resolution, certainly. And if I remember correctly, the small letters did not have what were referred to as true descenders. And how do I know all this? Well, another fellow I knew, and still know, his name is Mr. Bullock, found that, of course, the MPS 801 printer, as well as others, made by Commodore, had this horrid character set, did not have true descenders. And what are true descenders? Well, true descenders are when you have a small letter that there's actually a dot or so below the natural flow of the line of the text. But this printer, as well as others, did not. So, Mr. Bullock, otherwise known as Bill, actually did create a company called Willanta Arts. And Willanta Arts made an EEPROM that you could put in your MPS 801, and I believe they actually came up with one eventually for the MPS 803, because it had the same, I'd hesitate to say, but flawed character set, when it was in fact possible to rejig things and tweak things a little bit and get true descenders. So, somewhere I have some of those EPROMs still. I just don't know where. Anyway, but I don't believe they ever came out with one for this printer. Starting this printer as a workhorse, tractor feed, regular typewriter ribbon. As I'm looking at the front here, I don't believe, like if you can see here, it might look a little, well, certainly it's dusty here, but I'll clean it. But to me it looks like we never actually took the original plastic cover or the protective layer of plastic off the nameplate here, so I won't do that. Now, I don't have any printer paper right here, in here, right now. I don't. And as this is a tractor feed paper, or printer, you must have tractor feed paper to go. Now, the last time this has been plugged in is I don't know how long. And it certainly isn't, as I remember, there isn't a grand ceremony when you do turn it on. I think it makes a noise, the head moves over, and it sits there, ready to go. But let's see. It is plugged in. Oh, hang on. What did I do? Yeah, that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it. It has a very basic cover, black and plastic. And if I remember, there's only one button. Ooh. Oh, and an LED. Look at that. If I remember rightly, this button says feed, by the way. If I remember rightly, if I push this button in and turn the power on, it will try and do its self-test. Now, there is no paper in there. I've looked, I did find one, some packing material and one wayward screw from something in there, so I think I've got everything cleared out. So, let's see what happens here. Okay. So, that sounds all good. Remember, these are very basic, no pun intended, printers. And it's funny, it doesn't do a whole lot of thinking. There was a fellow, another fellow I grew up with, and well, yes, I'll use his name. His name was Paul Beard. And he got this wanky, fangle, glorious other printer that needed an interface. And he was all raving about it because it had a higher character per second count and all this other stuff. I said, oh yeah. And he said, yes, and mine's intelligent, it thinks, and it'll be fast. Anyway, so we together, on the phone, we did a little program to see whose printer could outperform. Now, the quality of his printer, or the print, was better. But he was sure that with all its intelligence and every other thing, and it was bi-directional, because this only prints one way, that it would be so much faster. So we wrote the program, counted it down, 3, 2, 1, go, and off things went. And when it became silent on the other end of his phone, he said, it can't be finished. And I said, yes, yes it is. His was still thinking away. It was working. It was doing fine. It was printing in both directions, and lovely characters and all that. But it wasn't faster. But really, it didn't matter. The speed is not always the thing. It just isn't. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up. It doesn't do much to cover up the sound. These printers were noisy. And I'm going to find some tractor paper or something of that nature. I do not know in what condition the ribbon is in. If there is a ribbon in it, remember, it's just a regular typewriter ribbon. Mind you, those used to be easily found. Now, I'm not so sure. But once I do find it, once I do find the paper and get it in there, and I'll run it through the self-test and see how it goes, then I'm going to find a PET to IEEE cable, because this is, as it's from Commodore, it is an IEEE printer. And I'm going to connect it, and I will attempt to send commands from the PET to the printer to have it do things. This is for two reasons. One, I want to test to see what up with the printer, and also I want to see what up with the 8032. Do I have any doubt that the 8032 will send it commands? None. Do I have any doubt that the printer will accept the commands? No, not really. I think it should be fine. But we'll see. And as I say, that is another story. So here we have an 8032 and a 2022. They did make, by the way, a friction feed printer called the 2023. They did. And I believe there was another version of this printer, the 2022, that had some more white stuff around the tractor feed. I'm not sure if this is earlier or later. I don't know. I just know we needed a printer. Oh, it's off. And this served us well for a long time. We actually, when we were running the Bradley Brothers bulletin board system, that's a whole other story, we would have it, when somebody logged in, we would have it print a thing just of, like a log of who had signed in and such. It didn't like print a whole bunch of stuff, it was just basically their name and the time and such. I'm not, now that I think, I'm not sure. Maybe it printed when they logged off and it was just like, you know, Jim Butterfield, time, date, you know, however many seconds or minutes or whatever. And was that really terribly helpful? No, not really. Although, it was helpful at one point in time, because you see, when we got going on that, we had more than one line, but we had to have a different computer on each thing, because we didn't have a way to connect them all together. Unlike some other bulletin boards of the day, and certainly the internet now. But at one point, we did notice that there was a user that seemed to be connected an awful lot to more than one line at a time. And we did determine that way back when that we had been quote-unquote hacked, and this was a fake account, and many people were using it to access us. So I don't think it went on for very long, but anyway, the printer did, this printer as well as others that were keeping a track of the log stuff, did assist us in resolving that. So, thanks for being here. I'm off to look for some paper, and the explorations of this fine machine will continue. Bye for now. found something. It is not exactly what I wanted, but it will do. What it is basically it's tractor feed. They're like postcards. And many years ago, when I was in Florida and had a computer store, I would print out things on these postcards, and because we had a bulk mailing permit, I could send updates to people. I think the one I sent out most often was to warn people about, you know, lightning, electrical shocks, and other such things. Because, of course, some machines were killed like that. And, of course, even today, the best thing to do, if you are around and doing things and you hear thunder, the best thing you can do is unplug your machine from everything. If that means pulling the plug of the power bar so that it's right out of the wall, or the individual plug, that's fine, because let's face it, if the electrical system in your area is hit, anything you have that is plugged in might die. It might. Anyway, so these postcards, there are 3 to a page, are not as wide as a regular piece of paper. But they should do. So with this, there was, as I said, it was a tractor feed arrangement, which, if I remember rightly, went in and curved around. And in order to adjust, I just have to pull this and slide this, I believe. What I'm finding at this moment is that maybe this cardboard is not so eager to come through. Aha! The other side. Okay. There seems to be some dust. You know what? I think I'm going to rip this off a little bit. I'm going to try again using the angled approach to the end. So I can maybe get enough through here to get a grip. And that didn't sound good. It is not being completely agreeable as it is. Perhaps a tiny pair of pliers will help me get it's kind of coming. I can see it. I almost had it. Okay. I'm getting more of it, but I'm finding, of course, see the tractor feed stuff will try to tear off. Ah, don't go down, don't go down. Because that's what tractor feed stuff does. Okay. Alright, I think I have it through enough. Okay, something. Okay, we're getting there. Somewhat. You know, I was thinking that I would just line this up on the one side and move the one side over. not sure that that is the way to go. I'm going to move both sides. It really doesn't matter. I mean, it's when I do the testing, it's going to miss on some of this anyway. So it really doesn't matter where it's not printing on paper. I guess I should turn this. Okay. So that. We're not quite straight. I guess the thing, it's been a while since I have done this, although in olden times, when printing mailing labels, I was very good at this. Now, if I press feed, it feeds. When I think of mailing labels, let me just tell you a quick story. Ooh, what happened there? Okay, we're on to a new page. Anyway, with mailing labels, you know, it was really best to just have two printers, one for labels, one, oh, wait a second, need to tighten that, one for paper, because the setup took forever, and most people who were doing it, oh, it just took so long. So it was much more efficient if you had two printers, one for paper, one for labels. And the worst thing anybody could ever do was decide. Now, if you notice on this printer, there is nothing to turn with your hand, but there was always somebody who would decide that it would be horrible to waste a label that had gone somewhat by. And so they would try and back up the printer. And invariably, the label would then start to come off and stick inside the guts of the printer. And I don't know how many times I went at printers to get such labels out, and I'd always say, really, it's not worth worrying about one label. It's not. So, here we are. This is not a label. This is thicker than normal. I seem to remember there might have been some little adjustment to tinker with the print head pressure. But I don't see it, so I'm not going to worry about it. Ah, right. Feed. Alright, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to see what happens. Okay. It is doing the self-test, which is encouraging. And I can see on the paper that it is hitting. And, of course, a lot of the ribbon will have been out in the air for 20 or more years. But the ribbon mechanism is working. It is turning. So I'm hoping that some of the ribbon might have some life to it. And we might get to that as it turns. Now, unlike ribbons that are in cartridges, there is a whole lot of there's a whole lot of this ribbon that is exposed to the air. But as it is going, I can see, and you may be able to see there, I don't know, but I can see it is faint. But it is indeed printed. These printers were loud, by the way. Oh, okay. No trouble? Okay. We had a bit of trouble there because the pile of cards is not really set up right. I do believe that this printer would be happier with regular paper. This is thicker. So, up here, I'm sure you can't see very well because neither can I. It's almost, I mean, you can see the paper's been hit. It's almost like braille in a way, although it's not. But as you go down here, I can see the characters. They are not bright. The ribbon, I'm sure, is pretty worn. But when I look at it here, I can see all the characters seem to be working, all the pins seem to be striking, and all it does on the self-test is just read the characters. And I can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, colon, semicolon, greater than, equals, less than, question mark, at, and then the alphabet, etc., etc., etc. So, this is good. So she seems to work. Although, there was the odd time, and it did not seem really pleased about having this thickness in here. And still, I thought there was some adjustment. But I don't see it. Don't touch dot head because of heating. Heating spelled H-E-E-T-I-N-G. Warning, keep hair, fingers, bracelets, etc. out of this area. And then the same thing in French. Ribbon setting course. Yes, that's the way the ribbon would go. Well, so far so good. I'm going to look still for some tractor feed paper rather than this cardboard stuff, although this cardboard stuff does work. And I will look for a PET-IEEE cable. And I will put the 6502 chip back into this PET that I've been running the diagnostics on. And try and send commands to this fine printer. But that, as they say, is another story. It is. So even if I cannot find printer paper, I can still tinker on this. I can. And I will. What I suspect I would do then would be get it so it's flowing nicer. It was always a trick to make sure that labels and things were lined up just right. Because if even just off a bit, the sticky messes that could be created. So really, setting up a printer such as this, or other tractor feed printers with mailing labels, was really an art. That is why, even though some people would say, oh, it's so expensive to get another printer, it really was cheaper to have two printers. And I'd have to think about whether they would be different devices on the IEEE bus, or if you needed one of those switches. Paper, labels, paper, labels. I'll think about that. Anyway, thanks for being here as we explore the Commodore 2022 tractor printer from way back. Now, this printer is probably well, we would have got it pretty early. 40 years old, maybe, possibly, could be, maybe. And a note, the protective seal on the front has not been messed with. The printer itself has seen a lot of life. Cosmetically, it is not perfect, but it still works, and it's all good. So,
that was easy. Others can't help you now.
That's discouraging. Well, thank you for coming. We will meet again, and we will continue to explore both this machine and this machine. Bye for now. Hello, and welcome back. So I have removed the diagnostics from this 8032. I have returned the 6502 chip to its socket. It's a good thing that this, well, it was the 6502, because in this machine there is very little that is socketed. Very little indeed. Anyway, so first I'm going to turn on the printer. Oh. There, I'm going to turn on the printer. Now, I'm suspecting that when I turn on the 8032, that it should also reset the printer, and it does. So that is good. It is. Now, the thing I have to remember is how do we address the printer? And I think it's device number 4. So I think if I did something like this, 10, open, 4, 4, 4, print number 4, this is a test, close 4, then it would print. Syntax error in 20. Excellent. Maybe I don't need that comma. Alright. Try that again. Syntax error in 20. Isn't that interesting? I will try semicolon, syntax error in 20. to bend. Well, it is printing. I've opened 4,4. I tell it to print number 4. This is a test of this 2022 tractor feed printer, close 4. And I type in run. And something is printing. But it doesn't look like what I've intended. Maybe this time. Oh, it's somewhat. It seems to be maybe printing in reverse field. Well, it's printing 2022. Alright. Keep in mind, I just doubled what I'm going to print. I printed nothing. Keep in mind. Oh, wait a second here. Let's try that again. Alright. I did not screw this cable in. Right. Alright. This is very strange. At the beginning, it was doing something. Try again. This is a test That's not what I had in mind. This is very strange. What I have done is I've taken a cable such as this, and I've connected these two things together. But I'm having strange results. This is obviously not the cable I'm using, but it's going to be. So, first, I will turn off the printer. Second, I will turn off the computer. Pull that off. Now, one thing about these cables is the logo is the side you want to be on the top side. This could be difficult. Remember, on these machines, there's the user port. IEEE port. All right. Printer. Turn on the computer. So now we have exactly what we had. Oops. Shut the shift lock is down. We have an IEEE cable connected to this printer. Where are you looking? We put in here. Syntax there. Oh, right. When you do things in a capital way, not necessarily work out well. Oh, right. And when you do not put the command before a comma, it will not print to the printer. Well, that looks better. It does. This would lead me to think that it is possible, perhaps, that the IEEE cable, the PET-IEEE cable, has an issue, because this is printing as it should, exactly what I want it to. That is why I cannot imagine testing things such as this without having extra cables and extra stuff, because you just never know. So I am going to there's the alphabet. I'm going to put a semicolon. I'm going to do this. Three times. Syntax are in 20. Oh, good. What have I done? Print number 4, comma. Maybe print number 4. Oh. I don't understand why I'm typing this again, but anyway. It's not very dark, but it is the alphabet over and over again. Alright, how about this? Right now I have a program here. It's 10, open 4, comma 4. 20 is print number 4, comma, quote. And then it has the alphabet with a quote and a semicolon. And then there's 3 more lines, sorry, 2 more lines like that, and it closes. So I want to do a little more of this. I'm going to do 15 for I equals 1, 2, 15. And then on 25, I'm going to do next I. This should force this to do a little more printing. And it did. Excellent. So, this printer works with its fine 8032. I will have to tinker and see if there is trouble with that other cable. It's funny, that reminds me of a story. I always have a story. At one point in time, when we were running a bulletin board out of our high school, which was Northern Secondary School, we were experiencing troubles. The teacher bet us dinner that it was we said it was a hardware problem, he said it was a software problem. He bet us dinner that it was a software problem. We said it was a hardware problem. And in the end, after looking and carefully going over everything we could find and do, it ended up that one of the cables, which was an IEEE to IEEE cable, had one of the little pins inside that was bent, defective, missing, otherwise screwed. I think we were able to use it for something else okay, but whatever we were trying to use it for, it wouldn't, I think. Anyway, so off to Swiss Chalet we went. Anyway.
That was easy.
Not really. It was not. But they're still here.
Now is a good time to run.
Reasonable. Anyway, here we have the 2022 printer. Seems to be working just fine. I do need to find a new typewriter ribbon. I wonder where one would find those. And I'm still a little perplexed about the cabling. But that is another story. Stay tuned. Bye for now. Okay, I'm going to turn on the printer. Here I am. I'm with this 2022 printer and this 8032. And I'm trying again with the cable that I tried the first time that gave me trouble. More trouble. Always check and make sure the shift block is not down. So, we're going to do this a little different. Where I equals 1, 2, 1, 2, 1,000, 20, range, number 4, comma, quote, x, quote, semicolon, 25, x, I, 30, close, 4. So what I have here is this quick little program that opens the channel to the printer. For 1,000 times it's going to print a capital X, and it's going to close it. Now, remember, if you have been around, I tried this before, not exactly this, but I've been trying to get this printer to work with this computer, and it does. But with the cable I just reconnected, it had issues. Well, it certainly sounded better than the first time through. Alright. You know we have characters. I put a capital X, and I believe what I've got is the character, the PET-IEEE graphic character, rather than the X. Let's try that again. And that works just fine. Well, interesting, because before, when I put in something very similar to this, printer, I don't need to do this 1,000 times. I'll do this 10 times. When I did this before, it really didn't do well. And now it works just fine. Well, let us keep in mind there are a number of factors we must consider here. Firstly, I've just switched back to the cable that I was originally using. Now, the cable PET-IEEE cable is an interesting sort. On one end, we have one that goes onto the PET, which basically goes an edge connector. The other is, I think they call it the D connector, and it goes on, you can screw it on. I am suspecting that my first time through with the cable that is now on there, it is possible. First of all, I don't know when this machine last had a cable hooked up, so maybe it hadn't for a while and it just wasn't quite making a good connection. But it's also possible that when you put on such a cable as this and do all the things to get it into position, that it could have got a little bit tweaked. And I do remember a time or two over the years having to say, wait a second, let's reconnect the cable. So, the end result of this is that I believe, and the print is coming through a little better, that we have two good cables, one good printer, and a fine 8032. I'm going to try one other thing, if I can remember how. If I can remember how. There was a way to make this print the characters wider, and I think it was if you sent a character string 16 to the printer. Now, am I correct in this? I don't remember. According to what I just did, the answer is no. Perhaps it was a 12. It's funny, you get to know the sound and you're like, no, that maybe it was character string 13. I'm not going to do this all day, but I believe it was somewhere in the no, that's not it. Oh, well. It'll come to me. Anyway, what that would do is, if you were doing stuff, and when I first did word processing stuff, it was using print commands. Or, when I got really experienced, I used data commands, and I would just read the lines. But when you did have something you wanted to do as, like, the title, you could make it twice as tall. Not twice as tall, twice as wide. Which made it look bigger, but it really was taller. It was just wider. But I don't remember what character string it was. I'm sure with some experimentation, I could figure this out. I could. Let me list this program for a second. Well, what I could do, I remember my teacher long ago, Gordon Mahaffey, would say, don't you count, let the computer count. So I have changed this so that instead of printing character string whatever I thought it was, I'm now doing a loop from 1 to 25, and I'm asking it to print character string I. See if we hear any difference. I thought I heard something different, but nothing. What's happening here? I won't go up. something. Oh, God, who knows? Maybe one of the strange character strings has done something. Well, I'm going to try one other thing. I'm going to go. See, that with all these character strings and other things, you never know. I'm going to go for 25 to 50, give it one more shot. No. There is something. It's funny though, because what was happening up here, I will have to look all this up. Anyway, there were characters printing on the screen. Oh. Oh. Okay, hang on. I was not printing the character string to the printer. Let's see how this works. Okay, definitely. We're still printing. We're stopped. Okay, one of them did, because I see there's a thing here, wider, that says this is a test of the Commodore. Maybe it was just character string 1. It seemed to be pretty quick that this happened. Went over. Hold on. All right. Let's see. Well, I don't know if anything else works, but certainly character string 1 works. And it says, well, I mean, this is not the whole paper thing, but it says, is a test of the Commodore. If you do happen to run over the length of this thing, it goes back to the regular size, and I did, so I'm not concerned. Anyway, so if you have an old Commodore printer, and you are wanting to print bigger characters, wider characters, character string 1. Anyway, to summarize, a beautiful E32, a wonderful old printer. I'm suspecting my troubles before were something, the cable wasn't just right, because I was getting strange results. But now, same machine, same printer, original cable that I tried with, works just fine.
That was easy.
or my assumptions could be wrong. We shall see. Anyway, thanks for coming. We have more experiments to conduct. I'm not sure what that means yet.